I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you all. Roll call, please.
Brown.
Here.
Hammond.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Underwood.
Here.
Gilman.
Here. All right, that moves us to our agenda. We do have a blue sheet item we will add as item number M, and that is for services, engineering services, professional services, what's IOHM. Did I get a motion or an addition?
Motion to approve the agenda with the addition of item M.
Alan?
Second.
And Joe. All righty, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have an agenda. Does anyone have a conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, that moves us to our first public comment. We have, it looks like one person in the audience. Would you like to, do you have anything you'd like to say before we get started?
No, I'm just here on behalf of the Tuckies. I believe it's G.
All right. Okay, so public comment, we have none. That brings us to our action items, and guess what? Both of them have canceled their appointments. Dan is not going to be here, and neither is Josh. Josh will probably be rescheduling for next month. And that brings us to our consent calendar.
The consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Requests by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as an agenda item are automatically respected. The action noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. The manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes. 2, payroll. 3, accounts payable. 4, financial reports. 5, communication, reports and communications.
All right, would anybody on the board like to remove anything for discussion or consideration on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll go to the audience. Nothing from the audience, nobody from the audience jumping up. I'd accept a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Carl and
Second.
Joe. You guys are all anxious. Just fit to get into the fight here. All right, roll call please for the.
Hammond.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown. Gilman.
Yes, unanimous. No items removed from the consent calendar. That brings us to item D, the PA 202 waiver.
So this is our annual waiver. We filled out the forms for the local retirement reporting because we're on a pay-as-you-go basis. We triggered underfunded because we don't have a trust set up. We've been approved, our waivers have been approved in the past few years since this new law took effect. Our current annual amounts for the retiree health stipends is less than $100,000. And then in 14 years, I'm projecting it to be under 10,000 by then, based on the mortality.
There are people who don't trigger who are in worse shape than we are probably.
So, yeah, so we just need acceptance of this by our board, and then I can send the packet up to Lansing.
Motion to approve the application of waiver.
Alan, Sport, and Carl.
I have a question. Would it behoove us to set up? No,
No,
All right.
we're pay-as-you-go.
that's all right. What is?
Now,
Never do this all the time.
discussion happens every couple of years.
Yep. Same questions asked. So that's
All I need to know.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Brings us to item E, the 2022 budget amendment number 3. Is that the one you sent out?
Yeah, I did send it out, sorry, but I didn't have it completed in time for the packets. But primarily, this is going through and looking at the projects that recently was bid out, and then cleaning up some of the capital outlay. So that overall, from the amended fund balance, I'm reducing it another $197,000, which would project us, if everything were to be paid by the end of the year, at $3.9 million of fund balance. You'll see in some of the projects that some of our federal aids, although the costs did go up, they'll be completed next year. So I plan on doing another budget amendment in December to do a little housekeeping, maybe move those projects into the 23 budget at the same time we adopt the 23 budget. Kind of clean things up. Interest rates have been going up. We started the year out at 0.04% and they're around 2.25%. I predict them to go even higher with pocket the Feds of raising rates again. So I picked up another $95,000 of revenue for interest this year. We had a big TWA for MDOT that wasn't budgeted, so we picked up that. That's just a pass through. And then the township contributions of $321,000. That's truing up the Bryan agreements with the townships. We chose the second application. I'm anticipating approval of East Bay Township Timber Hill SAD. So that would be the township and SAD's local match. And then also Long Lake completed their turn lane. They did the work. This is basically recognizing their share of the costs into that project, so I can capitalize it as part of our infrastructure. The only other thing in the expenditure side is I looked at some of the equipment we were using, charging a lot more hours of equipment, so you'll see a credit in our equipment activities, and the expenditures are just pushed into our primarily routine maintenance type of activities. I did put a list of the projects of where we're projecting this year, and then I also have the updated capital outlay. Primarily the capital outlay, that's an easy one. We have their 2023 trucks. We have 3 Western Stars that won't be delivered till next year. So I'm just pulling that out now because they were planned for 23 budget anyway, but I budgeted them this year just in case they did come in early. So we had it appropriated, but we know now that they won't be here before the end of the year. So same with the other 2 pickups. Everything else was kind of reshifting around from our building improvements and funds. On the projects, went through, updated for the Elmer's contract that we awarded last month for those crush and shape projects. We got those costs for each project in here. Updated federal aid. We had some increases in the federal aid estimates. Those are going to go to a November letting. So once we get those costs, it'll be a 23 bill. So I'll probably pull that out in December, and then in the 23 budget, put in what the bid MDOT bid prices are. I have no idea where those will come in at this point. Yes, sir.
Just trying to keep track of where the money's coming from and going to and all that. The capital outlay that you have in this budget, we're going to be spending that this year, or?
Well, so I did. So the Kingsley facility, we had, I think starting in 2020, like 4 million set in there.
Right.
We're gonna do the earthwork this year and then get going on design. So I lowered that amount to what the proposed design amount was. And then earthwork, we put in at about $100,000 to get rid of the trees and do some site leveling. And then I also included the $30,000 purchase price.
And at what point are we into financing?
We haven't.
It'll be in 23. We're not into financing.
Yeah, and that's why we'll need to, when we get to that, talk about the group getting back together now that we own the property.
Yeah,
So
and at that time, that $94,000 isn't going to seem like a lot, probably.
Yeah.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, so we'll need to sit down, we'll
Okay.
need to schedule a next meeting to follow up is where we are with what we've learned so far.
I think once I get the design, better design, they'll be able to give us better estimates and then we'll be able to, you know, what we need to finance at that point, but it won't be this year.
So you're projecting what, 3.9 million for fund balance? Is that what you said?
Yeah, but it'll be a lot higher, because I have, for the,
Well, because of the carryover in that.
yeah, the three
Okay.
federal aid projects
Okay.
alone, I have a
Okay, so we'll,
portion net of federal.
way
aid of
more than-
1.1 million.
what's our minimum? What is it, 3? Is that what, 3 or 3.5?
It's-
Something like that.
It was around that.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
We're gonna be substantially
Yeah,
higher.
it was like 3 or 3. That's fine. I just,
And there's still some millage funds that, I'll carry over too that haven't been tied to a project yet. Either so in December, we'll move that over into the next year's budget. When they start to go through and do the project selections. For 2023.
So this is probably a very basic question. What is our fiscal year? What does? it-
January through December 31st.
Okay, so then this amendment 3. What is it exactly doing? Or is it, by how much are we amending the budget? What was the original amount and what's going to be the amount after the amendment?
Yeah, so after this amendment, it'll take our targeted fund balance to just under $4 million. But I recognize that there's, you know, we have $100,000 in there for a bucket truck that we don't have any, you know, we probably won't be purchasing this year,
Okay,
so that'll increase fund balance. There was security upgrades. We had the original budget of $121,000. We don't have any contracts or plans for that, so that'll, you know, I mean, so the ending fund balance will, we're gonna be in a healthy financial position.
okay, so because in the packet that I was looking at specifically the total budget for the total winter maintenance.
Yeah.
And under the heading of remaining budget, it showed that it says 629,218. And then in this one, it's showing
Yes.
1,063,000. So is that where?
So the big, so in the winter maintenance, the only thing I had really adjusted was the equipment. We used a lot, we had a real busy or heavy January through March this year, so there was a lot of equipment hours charged, a lot more than we originally estimated. So I picked up some more expenditures in their winter maintenance, and the credit is basically offsetting our fuel and repairs and those type of activities. It's a shift from some activities down in the equipment back to where we do our work.
Okay,
So that's why that increase to recognize what the crews are actually charging up. Because when they go out on winter maintenance, if they're out for 10-hour shift, they're going to charge 10 hours of their equipment at state rates.
okay.
And that's a statewide average rates of all the county road commissions.
Okay, all right, that explains that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
you must be anticipating at least one more amendment than I, for the end of the year.
I think,
One or two.
I think I might try to, yeah,
One or two.
just more for housekeeping than
Right.
anything.
Yeah, not really
You know,
changing.
Because I don't want to budget something in both budgets.
Right.
It's cleaner to
It's
show
cleaner
it in one
to
or the
throw
other.
it into the other one.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And I know you've been doing that in the past.
Typically,
Yeah.
Approve.
I'll make a motion, we approve budget amendment number 3 as presented by Phil.
And right? All right, and roll call, please.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Haslam,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes, unanimous. Brings us to item F. And we've been waiting for this stuff to start happening here. Garfield at Potter, the roundabout activities. Wayne, I guess you're up.
Yes, thank you. I tried to provide you some background. Not everyone is aware of the background of that particular intersection and the work that we've done there in the past with back in 2012 with safety grant and increased signage, in order to advance notice to residents driving through there. Crashes continue to happen. So rightfully so, we continue to look at that. In 2017, we submitted for a road safety audit. That's where that team of disciplined agents come in and from different perspectives, and they come in blind. They're not familiar with our area. They're not familiar with the intersection, so that gives them a good non-biased interpretation. They come in, they start looking at everything, and they go through that, go through the whole RSA process, and what come out of that RSA process was the recommendation for a roundabout. Based off of that report, we used that, then sought another safety grant, which we received here in April of 21 for the fiscal year of 2023. So that brings us to, so we have a safety grant for $600,000. That's the maximum that we can receive through the safety program. So that does help offset, but we're anticipating a roundabout construction there of about 1.5 million. They're not cheap, but they do save lives, and that is a very dangerous intersection there. So in light of the current staffing and vacancies and schedules and our workload, we're requesting to utilize our professional services of OHM advisors who have got a good history with us for designing and building, finishing up on 3 roundabouts now. So we've selected them, and with their proposal to do the design services for a roundabout for the fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $169,895, more or less.
Discussion.
The road safety audits, they've been going on for a long time, right? I mean, it's a process that's been going on for a long time. I guess I'm just curious, how come the more recent road safety audits all are coming out in favor of building roundabouts?
Well, this one was actually 3 years ago, I think this one.
Well, 17.
Yeah, 2017, it was 5 years ago, hasn't it been that long?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's been.
Yeah, we're.
I mean, just as a,
Like 8.
It's just, the
you know,
increased usage of roundabouts has produced the evidence that shows that while there may be more side impact type accidents, the 90-degree or head-on accidents are significantly reduced. And that's what we've had a lot of out there. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the intersection, but people are always trying to get out, and it's not an easy intersection for them to get out on. And so we've had some head-ons and we've had a lot of side impacts. So when these road safety audits come in, they take what the most recent studies have been, where safety has been affected, what the best modes of implementation are to increase safety, and that's what they are recommending now. And this is pretty much across the US. It's not just on here, it's just the nature of the way a roundabout works. It keeps traffic flowing, but it does slow people down, and it doesn't have that potential for a left turner turning because they're not paying attention to the vehicle coming and hitting a side swipe. It's always, you're always having, instead of a direct impact, you know, these glancing blow type accidents.
so there's just more data now.
Yeah, and so, and you're seeing them, and you're seeing more and more roundabouts. If you travel around Michigan, anywhere now, you're seeing roundabouts. Houghton just put in, what, 7 of them in a row?
Marquette.
Or Marquette, sorry.
Yeah.
Marquette put like 7 of them in a row. And they're being built all over the state.
I think that's why, you know, when you go talk to people, that's what people have like, why are we all of a sudden seeing roundabouts? So that's why I asked, because I know a lot of people have the same question. It's like, well, we never had those roundabouts before, but to your, but you're saying that the more we're building them, we're getting the data to show that those are reducing.
And I'm not sure if it was the first roundabouts that were built or if it was the second, but in Brighton at Lee Road, which is the main offshoot of US 23, just south of 96, to get into Brighton, that was a absolutely horrible interchange. And people were routinely backed up out onto the US 23 with a lot of significant impacts. So they started there. That was one of the first things. And they made mistakes. I mean, they made mistakes that were not correctable on how they built these roundabouts. So they had some major issues. And we've been learning now as we go, what is the safest way to build these things. So the design of them changes slightly as you look at what are your space constraints, what are your speeds coming in, what are your volumes coming in from each direction. And now you look at where I used to work in Ann Arbor, I mean, they've got them all over the place. They've got State and Ellsworth, which is a massive roundabout because State Street has 45,000 cars a day and Ellsworth has 35,000 cars a day. And they replaced the signal with a roundabout there because people were tired of waiting for so long and they make these reckless turns. So the data that's out there that shows the reduction in serious injury, is that a C is higher injury or A or a fatality? So these high injury A accidents or fatality accidents are so significantly reduced that, you know, you trade off some of these side swipes because it's pretty easy to fix a car. It's not very easy to deal with other issues.
Well, I'm ready to make the motion, so. Well, you can make motion, yeah.
Well,
Make motion
just to
anytime.
follow up too, when we applied for that safety grant, we anticipated that the outcome, if it was passed and we got the money, was gonna be a roundabout. I mean, you know, and the roundabouts versus traffic signals keeps people
Yeah,
moving.
and I'm
so.
not talking about specific
Yeah.
areas, I was just
Yeah.
like more about the
Sure.
overall trend. The only other question I had, Brad, is that didn't we hire a designing, one of the new hires, isn't he a design engineer or something?
There's a person that we have coming on soon,
Okay,
but he is going to have to learn some of this also. And so he will be able to help out in the future.
that's what-
We actually have potential, you know, he's supposed to start, help me out, Heather, by the end of September.
Yes.
And then we also have another engineer potential that we're gonna be interviewing, but, you know, we are getting more fully staffed, but they are still gonna have to learn to have these true roundabout design skills to do these
So in the
things.
future, they could have.
Yeah, we're gonna be reducing,
More in-house.
our anticipation is we'll be reducing our consulting costs drastically as we get our engineer, and Jim stopped in beforehand just to say hi to some people here. But yeah, he's already catching on to a lot of things. So there's a lot of things that we used to be, or we have historically consulted out that we will now be able to start doing in-house. There will always be certain things that we don't have the expertise. Bridges, we're never gonna design our own bridges. So,
Did you have anything?
I had a number of things to say about it.
Please.
Really, when we're approving this design thing for $170,000, we're really obligating $1.7 million to the roundabout. Because we're not gonna spend $170,000 to design it and not do it. That's what we got. One of our members didn't like that when earlier on, when we said, okay, if the board is approving the design services for roundabouts, and that means you're actually gonna build a roundabout. So we really should consider that we're really spending $1.7 million here, not $170,000. And then we were going to, 2 months ago, when we had our board member meeting, we were gonna come up with some committees to think about things like construction. Because $1.5 million, they're gonna design this, and we're gonna end up with think, couldn't we have done that, even do it safely? But could we have looked at some of the costs that go into the roundabouts that maybe we don't always need? I looked again at the fancy brick out there, and I think we could do without fancy brick pavement out there, and I think we could do without it. And every $100,000 should matter to us, in my opinion. And so I thought maybe we should talk about the construction committee before we, or in conjunction with us doing this. So that we can have some input with Wayne and the OHM design staff, so that we are in the process early enough to make a difference, to shepherd the public's money wisely. And so I'd like you guys to consider that.
Just a couple comments. One, this is the first time I've had people ask me when we're gonna build a roundabout. because that's my area, that's my neighborhood, and they want the roundabout built, which it's kind of surprising considering 3 years ago, nobody wanted them. So the attitude is shifting. I forgot what the other, I forgot the other one was I was gonna mention.
I'll tell you
It
what,
doesn't have to be pretty.
we'll come back to it. I mean, we can have this discussion for as long as we need to. So first of all, 5 years ago, I guess, 5 years ago, I was absolutely for it because at the time, it looked like our safety grant was gonna cover every penny of it. I mean, that was kind of the impression that I had. Maybe I was mistaken, or it was gonna cover most of it, and we had a small stake into it. The thought that we have potentially the design engineers coming on, and we're rushing forward to throw some of this outsourcing out there does not make me feel very comfortable. And the other thing that I still have yet to have satisfied is the input aspect of it insofar as the design. I'm perfectly happy with the lousy left entry roundabout where it's super simple and you don't put a crossing in at all. Because nobody's walking out on Potter and Garfield. Nobody. I mean, somebody might be jogging down Garfield Road. So bring it back, bring a crossing back in on Potter or Hoakside or something, which doesn't cost or add anything to the cost. But this ADA stuff where there will never be an ADA person crossing that adds $200,000 to the cost and design of a roundabout is absurd to me. And it irritates me and it makes the other roads less safe. And pretty soon we'll have more people who are requiring those ADA crossings because they've had an accident because we have a lousy road. I know that's an absurd extension, but
every dollar we spend on these,
but
you thought that this was
Yeah.
gonna cost 600 grand and we're gonna get a
that's
thing for 600 grand.
that's
And now our cost based on our averages,
Yeah.
right? You're not sugarcoating that way.
So-
You really think it's
so-
gonna be $1.5 million, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So my thought is this, is if we're thinking $1.5 million, we're thinking that it's over designed. I'm thinking that it's going to be over designed. And if we give them $169,000 to design it, they're going to design it however they design it. And we're not, our oversight is lost when we have somebody else, who's already the contractor going to get paid. And then if we don't like it, then it's gone. It's just, so honestly, I'm not going to support it this time. I just, I was in support of it and I'm still in support of having a roundabout there. I want to have a roundabout there. I think that's a great place for roundabout because frankly, the blind spot, just because of the way that windows are configured on a car. I mean, that was the argument then. It's still the argument. We added the extra lane or the extra space and everything, but that didn't solve anything. And so I'm not in support, but
I have a secondary question. I remember what it was and I apologize. The detour. As I was reading through the report, 3 Mile can handle that traffic. If we're gonna route people through on Roush Road, we're gonna have to do something drastic on some of those sections because it'll destroy that road.
that road is destroyed already.
It's already halfway gone. Would that be included? Is that included in your estimate or is that not included in your estimate?
No, in Roush Road would be used for local traffic.
Okay.
Or getting people which currently
Truck traffic down.
use that there. The main detour route is gonna be 3 Mile.
Okay. Just just thinking semis on Roush Road, that's gone. I mean.
No.
What's the time frame on the term of the safety grant?
It has to be used, it's in that fiscal year of 2023. Has to be out, those funds have to be obligated in the state's fiscal year, which is October 1 to September 30.
We still have a little time.
So the one comment that I have is to both your point, it's like I'm all in favor of trying to see where we can be efficient with our cost in terms of materials and we don't need fancy brick, then we don't need fancy brick if normal brick would do. What I'm not comfortable with is getting into the design aspect of it. I'm not an engineer. I don't know how roundabouts are designed no more than I would haphazard to tell a doctor or physician how to do their job. So because I'm concerned that if the ADA aspects or whatever other design aspects are not up to some standard, and God forbid there's something, I'm concerned about the liability aspect of that as a road commission and a commissioner. So I'm all in favor of being efficient with the cost. I don't think we should be getting into design oversight and engineering aspects of something that we don't have expertise in.
If I may respond to a couple of those comments. I agree. We don't need fancy brick. We don't have fancy brick. We've got some stamped concrete. And then we've got some acid wash concrete out there. I agree. We don't need walkways, sidewalks where they're not necessary, where there's not any kind of a generation or there's not going to be a likelihood of any usage. At Cass and Keystone, the soccer complex on one side, we've got the river and the walking areas and the trails down to the river on the other side. So we have a crossing there. At River and Beitner and Keystone, we don't have any crosswalks. So in those areas where we foresee them, 4 Mile, we've got crosswalks. You got the Seventh-day Adventist Church, you've got Grolus, we've got a couple crosswalks there. The township has plans on bringing things into there. So we are looking at that. And I respectfully say we do have oversight in this design. That's what we do here. So as part of our administration of these contracts, we're administering, we are oversight, we are providing them valuable input, and we are responding to all their questions on that.
And the 4 Mile one, I talked to Brad earlier on, East Bay paid for the fancy stuff out there.
Yeah, that's the flower boxes.
Right. That was East Bay's, not ours.
Yeah,
And that's
she got a lot of
because
work from that.
That's because that's one of their placemaking type things where they want to set it up to be like a neighborhood type issue in that area.
So ultimately, once this, I mean, you're gonna review this whole, let's say we approve this, you're gonna review this all before we accept that design.
Okay, yes.
From
We go through process, we review it in-house. I have our techs review it as well. So it's not just one person. So we have our engineers, we have our techs reviewing those plans.
And maybe to that point, maybe, when it's in that process, all of us should be able to see that too. Not that we're gonna critique the safety part that you brought up. I'm in total agreement with you on that. We're not engineers. I'm not an engineer. I have to rely upon the people that are that. But at least at that point, we can see what's going on.
And I want to reiterate, I don't want to oversee the minutia. That's not the idea. It's just kind of the scope of things. And somebody says, well, why did you do that? Why is that stamped concrete there or what have you? Or, I mean, it's just, why did you spend this extra money on this when it's absolutely not necessary? That's the kind of stuff that we have to answer. And so that's where, we would kind of want to say, okay.
Because this request alone at $1.7 million is 10% of our budget.
Yeah, but the one point,
We get
you're
part of
saying
it back.
1.7, so it's actually 1.1.
1.1, yeah.
1.1.
It's 5%,
That's
it's 5%. It's 5% of our budget, anything, yeah. So, but it's, I mean, look, I was never a person that liked roundabouts to begin with, okay? And the Acme changed my mind. If we can build more roundabouts like those Acme roundabouts at Meyer, all day long, yes, sir. And again, I've said it before, urban, not a chance, wouldn't support them, okay? I mean, as urban as they get, the airport access at Parsons, that's actually a nice roundabout, and it's kind of appropriate for where it's at. The rural stuff, roundabouts are wonderful, especially in the high speed connectors that we have. So if we have somebody coming in at the end of the month, I mean, literally, how long does it take? I mean, an engineer presumably is going to have those skills coming into the door, right?
I'll leave that. I'll let Wayne address that. The problem is, you're talking about I'm not going to say it's the same as a bridge, but in many ways, There are so many things that go into how are you gonna fit this roundabout into this location, get this speed reduction accomplished to make the roundabout safe with the limited space you have. And plain and simple, the reason why you have those curve backs are to force people to slow down for one, but also it lines up. And I have had, and I will say this, and I said it before, but those two roundabouts out there, I've had a lot of phone calls. 90% of the people love them. They think it's the greatest thing, especially River Road, because there were a lot of people who, you know, complained about the fact that we were doing River, but we weren't doing Hope. But now the people from River love it because they can actually make a left turn and not feel like they're taking their lives in their own hands, because it's a much better crossing. It's a better functioning. And when I went home that way, instead of taking 22 minutes, it takes me 18 minutes. I mean, it's moving faster going that way.
This new engineer, do you know if he has roundabout design experience, like prior?
He didn't indicate any in when we, in our interview. Process.
Because I'm thinking, you said that this grant ends fiscal year 2023. So we have until September 30th of 2023, right?
To allocate.
To allocate, right, to allocate.
We would technically have until August 1st. They require a complete set of biddable project plans and specifications to MDOT by August 1 in order to obligate those funds for that fiscal year.
So with respect to this project, if this new engineer is coming in at the end of this month, I mean, we're talking about what, about like 10 months, you know, before we have to allocate. I mean, is that sufficient time for him to get up to speed? And
well, he's still gonna have to learn, and we're still gonna probably ask for, because that was the original idea was when we had started thinking we were getting closer to a full staff, was that we would be learning from the designs as we go, and we'd have an engineer that could be around with it to go through a couple of these roundabouts while the consultant was designing them, so they could learn, well, why is this way? And, you know, the one reason why we've gone with OHM is because they, plain and simple, in the state of Michigan, they are the roundabout people. They design more roundabouts every year than anybody else. They know what they're doing. They come in, they can look at it and see what they're doing. And they've been great to work with for us as far as trying to figure out, okay, you know, you got to make sure this happens by this date so that this can happen by this date so that we can have construction by this date. And so a lot of that comes down to them being able to just know from experience, and they've built a lot of them. And that's one of the reasons why we've been very happy with them. Plus, they are one of the more qualified engineering service providers that we've had. And we went through the QBS process with them, and they were selected as the best qualified engineering firm for the higher end stuff that we are asking them to do.
And I'm going to add that when we did Keystone, we used them and they had a lot of boots on the ground after the design was done. That they would have sucked our staff dry. Yeah, we're consulting with somebody, we're using a third party, but when it comes to boots on the ground, they're there.
The other aspect we want to keep in mind too is we don't want to put all of our resources into one project when we have so many other projects that are on the books that frankly we did not accomplish this year due to lack of staff. And so we've got a big backlog. I think it's wiser for us to utilize our inboard or our in-house staff for our local projects, where they're going to learn the most and where we're going to get the best bang for our buck out of them, and where these specialized projects like roundabouts are really kind of a special animal out there that we use. If we can't fit it in with our workload, then we get a professional like firm like OHM that's got that specialty that can go ahead and do that. And as Brad mentioned, we would have our new engineers watching and learning as they go and asking questions of the design process as we go through it. So they'll be able to pick that up, because it is our intent for them to be doing and for us to house and do our own design all in-house.
Do you need a motion?
I'll make the
Go ahead.
motion if it doesn't. I'll make the motion to approve design engineer services by OHM for $169,895 more or less
I'll support it.
for the roundabout 3 mile.
Any other discussion?
Roll call, please.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gillen.
No, motion passes. All righty. Variance request. Well, I guess this is Wayne, you can introduce the item and we can get right down to brass tacks here.
Yes, thank you.
Seems pretty reasonable.
So the applicant, Mr. Dave Tucky, who lives out on, or has a home out on 4671 State Park Highway in Interlochen, requested a variance for installing a septic drain on their property. This is a very old plat, 1948 plat. The road itself exists over toward the, I want to say, west side of the right of way. It's not exactly in the center of the right of way. And over the years, as that area built up, a number of encroachments occurred that are existing down there, garages mainly. This one, for Mr. Tucky, he has he purchased this home, and it's got a tank and a tank system. It does not have a regular drain field.
Holding tanks.
So it's got holding tanks that are required to be pumped out. That system is failing, and so he's forced to do a new system. Their preference is not to be doing another holding tank system. They want to do a drain field. They're limited. They can't go between their home and the lake due to neighboring wells. They've been working with the health department on that very diligently. Their only option is to go on the roadside of their home. And so they do have room in front of their home and aside their garage. So working with Mr. Tucky, he did surveying, got us that information. We've got a number of items that we would hold them to if approved. Number one mainly is that the drain field would not extend any further out into the right of way beyond the garage that's currently in the road right of way as well. He was okay with that. We have also, this is consistent with several other past variances that were granted for just, I think, a couple homes down is another one that was done just a few years ago for a drain field out in the road right away, because the road again is so far shifted over on the one side of the platted right of way on that. So staff, we initially have denied previous inquiries from the applicant. But after we've received further information on past variances, his personal letter of request and certificate survey, staff is neutral on this request with the recommendation of similar conditions attached to a license, with a license recorded at the Register of Deeds with the parcel, if approved by the board.
Explain to me that.
Yeah.
What you just said.
So the previous, the latest previous variance didn't do a permit. It stated it as a license. A license can be withdrawn at any given time. So if a project down through there comes up and that additional right of way is needed, in order to put in a road or put in a ditch, the license can be extinguished. Then the applicant is given a certain time period in order to take measures and remove the drain field. So the previous variance, they had sought legal counsel, and the recommendation was to not issue a permit, but to issue a license that is revocable.
And the field is actually just gonna line up with the garage, not actually be out in the ditch line or whatever.
No further west than the garage.
Yeah,
Correct, yes,
And there's never gonna be any development.
and there's really no ditch
I mean,
out there.
it's
It's pretty flat. It is a pretty rural area. I mean, it's next to the lake, but it's all very low speed area. It would be considered a 25-mile-an-hour area if it were paved.
We're not widening a road to a highway there, so.
so I'll make a motion, we allow the owner to apply for the license and put per the survey, put the drain field or the drain field in.
Please.
We were talking earlier today with Brad about this, and the state of Michigan, 98,
I think it was 98 or
98 passed a law that Eagle, DEQ back then, Eagle was supposed to identify lakes that should get sewers. We have the exact same problem around Glen Lake. Our family cottage is on a holding tank. We have these organizations like off 3 Mile that are building monuments to themselves. They want to do a $12 million addition to Tart Trail for what, 3-4 miles to get up to Hammond Road. Wasting, you want to talk about wasting taxpayer dollars. We're going to spend $12 million on the Tart Trail. How much sewer could that buy?
They're not supposed to be giving money to the Tart Trail anyway, because that's private organization. That's a whole other thing.
But these folks,
We stopped.
I'm kind of off on a tangent, I apologize.
No, you're fine.
But these lakes around here need sewers, and all of these wonderful Save the Birds organizations won't even touch it. And they really need to touch it, because houses are coming, and they're coming, and they're coming, and they're coming, and nobody is taking on the task of putting the sewers around these lakes. Because it will eventually destroy the lakes.
Five Flag did years ago, because the lake was getting destroyed.
Yeah.
And they encircled the lake with sewer.
Right.
Now the lake is
Yeah.
back up and running like a lake should run.
So, I mean, I fully agree with this, that folks need their variance, but I just want to say in a public meeting that we are failing these people by not pursuing. Governments are failing these people by not pursuing the sewers that are supposed to be going in around these lakes.
All right.
I have a few questions. I guess I'm still having a little difficulty understanding the difference between a permit and a license. I mean, from what you said, it seems like that the reason for license is so you can revoke it at the discretion of the board. But you can do the same with the permit. It actually is in your application for the permit in number 12, revocation of permit, which says this permit may be suspended or revoked at will and at the road commission's request. I'm not familiar with a variance authority under the county road law. I mean, 224.19B allows the issuance of a permit. I'm not aware of any statutory requirement that calls for the variance. Permit is fine because it accomplishes the same purposes. You can call it a permit, you can call it a license. It's doing the same thing, and it is revocable at the will, at the discretion of the
This is the permit prior to the construction, whereas the license would be to have that as an ongoing concern. I mean, wouldn't that
It
be
would be the same as a zoning permit. You get a zoning permit, it's staged, just like any other thing. You don't give a license.
Would it help a subsequent buyer of that property to be notified by the title agency that there was some peril with the property?
So that would be the reason why we are asking them to record it with the Register of Deeds, so that the permit will run with the land, so that whoever a subsequent purchaser is, whenever they do it, they'll see that there's a permit here, and that the road commission has the authority to, they issued it, they're the issuing authority, and they can.
If we were to say a transferable license recorded, would that be a better use? I mean, because if they were to sell it, that's a good point. I mean, honestly, who, in the technicality sale, you know.
The difference between a permit and a license, I'm merely going off the previous variance by previous engineer and previous legal counsel on that. My idea was to make sure it gets recorded so that, so that anyone in the future purchasing it understands that this is attached to that parcel, and that then they are aware of it. It doesn't come as a surprise to them. So from my perspective, I've only ever dealt with permits, so I wouldn't have.
If you were doing a permit, like on a house, once the house is done, that permit's closed out.
Yeah, that's the way.
That's closed out.
Yeah.
And a permit here, once they put it in, then that permit's closed out, but a license would follow the property forever. Is the way I.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I think a permit is permanent. I mean, then we're done because they grandfathered in or whatever.
Correct, but a license, like you said, if we were gonna do something, then they would be put on notice, they would have to do something with their system.
But, okay, but in that, if that's the case, then this application is for a permit. Is that the same application we're using to issue a license?
Well, that I don't know.
Yeah.
If the license is different, I'm gonna
Right,
guess
that's-
it's different
Yeah, because
than a permit.
they're already, this is like the form that they submitted, and which is the art.
Well, we internally close out the permits, don't we?
We do.
We internally close out. Somebody goes by, says, yeah, they did what they wanted.
They built the
That
driveway
would
or
not
whatever.
record it with the off register of deeds.
Or-
It's expected the road commission closes the permit.
Just out of curiosity, is the owner, are they familiar with the nomenclature we're using as far as a license?
I don't think they are. I think you're clarifying it right now.
Yeah.
I would think the permit would be more sustainable, it sounds like.
More definite.
Definite.
Is, I think,
Right.
you know.
My concern is like, if you're gonna issue a license, then the terms of whatever is in this application need to be given to, I am not aware of the authority, maybe the legal counsel can guide.
Issue the license.
To issue, I'm not aware of where the authority to issue a license comes from to the road commission. I'm aware of the authority to issue a permit to work within the right of way or to install a facility, operate, maintain, and install a
Right.
facility in the right of way. I'm not, which is a permit requirement. Call it a permit, call it a license. The couple of things that I want to make sure is that it has the hold harmless agreement for the road commission that says that if anything happens to that drain field, if anyone think the road commission is going to be held harmless. And then I also would like them to notify the road commission as to when the construction and everything and installation of the drain field takes place, and when the construction is completed and the location of the drain field, and also to obtain all of the approvals from the health department, all the necessary approvals, so.
Well, in any work in the right of way, they have to apply for a permit for that, regardless of
Yeah.
what they're doing in the
Right.
right of way.
Right.
Whether it be a drain field or whatever. And then I think in the past, the deal was anything that was put in that right of way, if we were gonna go in there and do any work and anything got damaged, that's on them. Not
Right.
that,
So,
We permit them.
Yeah, because that's what's all in this permit application. See,
right,
that's why I'm
Right,
making that
that-
distinction between a license and a permit,
right.
because it covers us.
I think that we've already done, I mean, we demonstrate that if we have to do road work, you know, work done in our right of way, say we have to move a telephone pole, okay?
Yeah.
Well, right now, there are utilities that have to move their stuff.
Yep.
Okay, they have to move their stuff at their expense if we're doing work there. And I think that still carries on, even if we give it as a permit. So if we still had to do work, they're still gonna have to repair their tank if we had to do work in that right of way. So-
Right.
So I don't think we even need to say license, honestly, I mean, I can't see where, I tend to agree with that, and frankly, if, you know, I appreciate staff bringing it to us in the way that it did. It's certainly more positive than we recommend you don't do this, you know, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
but I mean, looking at the diagrams where it's at, it's behind the front of a building, I mean, you know, in our right of way, you know, but.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm all for issuing the permit. I just want to make sure that we are covered in terms of what we typically require.
So we don't know why they did what they did to the
No.
neighbors. How they
Well,
issued this permit or
It's an
license.
abundance of caution, I'm sure, you know, certainly, you know.
No, I mean, why we had a different term.
Yeah,
That's what I mean, I think it was-
why on the previous variance, they did a license.
Yes, we don't know that.
And we can follow up with that with Gary too, or Bill had
Yeah.
one of the.
Well,
I was gonna
We
say, that
approve
goes
this
back quite a ways.
concept, is that what?
well, no, I think we have, you know, personally, if you guys can amend your motion, or we can take a vote on it, and then we can try it a different way, but
Well,
I think we just approved the permit, the variance.
The previous variance was given in 2016.
2016,
Yeah.
and they had a license on it then?
And they did it via license. And the reason that was stated in that paperwork was that the options include purchase of the vacant, sorry, wrong paragraph. A license allows for specific timelines for the recovery of the used right of way to the road commission and deem it necessary to use portion of the right of way. I believe a permit would be the same, that we can do the same thing. We can revoke a permit.
It's still a right of way.
Yeah.
It's still a right of way.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as it's in the initial permit, when we issue that permit, and we state these items and they agree with them, then I believe that we have every right and we're covered.
Okay.
All right, so we need to amend that
If
from license to permit
to approve the variance
as a permit.
as a permit,
Yes.
I'll amend my motion to that.
just to support that.
Of course.
Okay. So we have a motion and support, and I believe our discussion is, Kylie, could we have a roll call, please?
Brown,
Yes.
Chasm,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the discussion, and Mayor, I appreciate your input on that too. I was
Thank you.
kind of read the same thing.
On behalf of the Tuckies.
Sure.
We'll see you later.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
We'll weigh you down over here.
Tell them how much you banged on the podium.
Thank you so much. You do a nice job.
Have a good night.
That brings us to item H, underbody and wing cutting edge blades, simple stuff.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the blades from Truck and Trailer Specialties and Heights Equipment over the next 12 months in the amount of $75,700, more or less.
Carl. Second. And Joe, any discussion on this? All right, spending money.
Chasm,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gilman.
Yes. Unanimous. Okay. And then we are going to sell.
We are asking for the okay to sell the dryer blower arch for the car wash. When we got it, we were sold that it was going to be usable here, but we are not able to get enough power to this building to use it. So it's not going to ever be used. And in addition to that, the maintenance of it, if it were to be used, Dan's crews have stated it would not be worth it. And if we were to build a new one, we would not ask for a blower to be attached to that one either. There is another county road commission who wishes to purchase this, and it's 25 grand back to us. And we have no use
How
for
much
it.
did we pay for it?
You don't want to know, Alan.
50.
Yeah, and it can never be used here because we can't get the power.
The motion to dispose of the arch, please.
The whole building.
That's a plan.
Alan and Peter. All righty.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
So our trucks
Sell
will
that
drip
sucker.
dry.
That's what they've been doing, because they go, the thing is, when they come out, they go right into the garage.
Yeah. park it
And they
overnight.
sit in the garage and they dry there, so it's not a huge.
Which is really one of those really important things about getting all the salt off.
Yeah, so
So we're not gonna put one of those on the Kingsley one?
if we build one, no. So let's talk.
Yeah, okay, well, we're talking about it right now, Kingsley facility.
Okay, so, and you know, this is, unfortunately, this is kind of out of my wheelhouse, building, so I'm not sure really at this point if this is a great price. I'm kind of relying on some expertise of others to try and figure this out, but it's a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about a major construction project. We're talking about 15 acres of land that we've acquired now. We do own it. It's ours. We need to start moving forward on it. Obviously, we have some things that are going to be done. But this, at this point, at bare minimum, we need to have a pretty significant discussion about this so that everybody understands where we're coming from. Because with what the prices are coming in at and what they're estimating now, we're at over $7 million for this facility. Okay. That does not include the car wash, by the way. That is before the car wash was added. And the car wash, we're looking at probably another $1 million to build the car wash up there. So the questions come is, number one, it's been good, you know, we've had Carl and Jason, we've got some good feedback. We are going to be doing a lot of the contracted work outside of the general. So we're going to have the fence contractor working for us. We're going to have the tree removal done. They're going to all be done by us. We're going to have all of the IT stuff taken care of by a contractor for us. And it's going to all be coordinated with the building of the building. So the real question is that $410,000. And Carl, I know you've had a chance to look at it, and this is a pretty substantial thing. Is this really, what more do you want us to do? Or is that an acceptable amount for the design build portion of this, so that we can start moving forward with the facility and start getting an idea of where the buildings are going to sit, and we can start getting materials ordered in the near future. I don't necessarily need an approval tonight. We can wait another month if we need to, but I just want to get an idea of where do we stand as far as a board, so we can keep moving forward. I don't want to lose progress as far as where we're at now that we actually finally own the property.
I'd like to talk to a couple of engineers that I know and just see if that's a good number or not. I have no idea if that's, to me, it seems high, but I don't know that it is or isn't. And if we're gonna sub out, you know, if we're gonna take care of subbing out a lot of the detail here, whether it be the site work, and if we're gonna have somebody doing the site work, maybe they're gonna be doing that infrastructure too. And we're basically gonna be the overseer of that, not necessarily Grant Travers. I don't know if that's a good number or a bad number. I have absolutely zero idea.
I guess a question that I would have is there a design store? I mean, you know, where you could literally buy ready to go architectural prints for certain types of buildings? I mean, is there?
That's what you're talking about.
I understand,
Facility
I
design,
understand,
not building
I
design,
understand that,
right?
I understand that, but I mean, but it seems to me that if you had something like that where you could kind of say, okay, now then we have this landscape we're dealing with, you know, these utilities, et cetera. I mean, it seems like you could plug it in somehow, but 410,000 is a lot for design work of, how big is the building again?
I don't know the exact square footage.
Well, and I understand it's
But
more than the building,
like-
it's more than the building.
Yeah, you're talking about storing, I think, 12 vehicle spots that we have, or did we
Yeah.
up that a few? Somewhere around 12 large vehicle spots. We've got one small office plus a computer storage room. We've got restrooms and a small break room, plus we've got the fuel pumps. We've got the bins that need to be created to store all of our aggregates.
And allow me to be a little more naive, naive for a little bit longer. I mean, I just want to kind of throw this out there because sometimes it's just, you know, you have to kind of say it. They're presumably Grant Travers Construction, if they design everything, they're going to buy it as a kit a steel.
Well, they would have that building send in the design of it, and the steel.
And the steel
people
company's
would
gonna-
do that, and then they have erectors come in and put it up.
And is the steel company gonna be doing a great deal of the design work for the building? I mean, are they contracting it back out to them? Are they paying the steel company? I mean, there's a lot of questions. I just.
Well,
And I don't know why.
The steel company is gonna have to design that structure to withstand northern Michigan
Yeah.
climate. But if you give them a footprint, they're gonna turn that in, and Grand Traverse is not gonna say, you're gonna use this type of I-beam, or you're gonna use that. That steel manufacturer,
Is the one that's
you're
doing.
gonna give them some specifics of
engineering
what you
work is
want,
not
but that engineering side on the building is not gonna be Grand Traverse.
How, can I ask, how was Grand Traverse Construction selected as part of like a bidding
Yes.
Yes.
process? Okay. so-
Carl and Bill Mauser, who was a former commissioner, passed away, they were
We had-
two builder,
How many different ones
We had
submitted?
five submittals, and they were by far the best. It was a unanimous thing across staff and.
They can handle it.
So did the RFP that was sent out, did that include the design phase, the
It
construction?
was a
everything?
design build,
Okay.
so,
That was previous site.
but it was on a different site. And so since then, we realized that when we started looking, we were gonna demolish the building we have, but it's only on 5 acres. And we've had issue there because there's low power lines and we've hit power lines. And we can't go any farther back because of the wetlands. So we got this arrangement with Paradise Township where we got a pretty decent price on the property. And we're gonna move to a location that better suits our needs, plus it's behind the township hall. It's kind of away from anything that would ever be residential, so we don't have to worry about the noise, because we're pretty loud in the middle of the night during the winter when we're plowing snow.
So is the 7.39, is that within the bid price that was accepted?
No, this was a couple of years ago. This was before COVID, so prices have gone up.
And it was.
When we started originally, when we started originally, we were at 4.3 million. But since then, we've added 4 spaces.
Okay.
We've taken the salt barn and increased the size of the salt barn by 50%. And we've asked them to build some areas that have storage for us for aggregate that we weren't originally counting on them doing.
So it's changed from the original, but it was pre-COVID, and that kind of just.
Sure.
Yeah, and that killed us in progress right there.
And we had
Everything's
quite a struggle getting through the land transfer too.
Yes.
We've been dealing with that.
Because the land that they sold to us was originally sold to them by the DNR, so we had to go through the state to get what the okay to obtain.
Oh, it was a long time.
I thought it was 20 months.
Yeah.
I'm gonna probably agree with you, Alan. It was all of that, it feels like.
410,000, if it's an $8 million facility and you were gonna design it, I'd say the price is gonna be 10% of the facility.
For design.
For the design, some oversight.
So
Our roundabout is
10%.
10%. 170,000 on one place.
So this is 5%.
It's 5%, yeah.
But it's not all the design, is it?
I don't think so, Alan.
Somebody's gonna come back to us for more money, Brad, is that what?
Well, no, this is just for the design. The additional things, we did include in your packet, right, the rest of the packet that they had. Did we have
There's a
that?
contract in there.
Yeah, well, there's also talking about the individual line items.
Yeah.
That's in there also.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the total breakdown of costs, and that includes basically all of the individual items, so the fuel pumps, the salt barn. You know, they have to buy plans for a salt barn. Sure. And they have to get that built. They've got the storage. They've got DEQ requirements for the fact that we have fuel, plus we have salt. And those are both things that have to be
It's
contained.
architectural stuff. I mean.
I wouldn't be surprised if this was 700,000 before we were done, and if we're gonna build a $7 million facility, I would not be surprised.
Probably not.
So
It's
it's about, I think commercial
Well, we're
stuff
doing
always
it.
around 10%.
You know, honestly,
Well,
We like-
and just because you approve this now does not mean we can't sit down as a group and start needling through this with Grand Traverse to get more specifics before we actually sign on the dotted line.
I guess I'd like to have a little more input from some other sources, not necessarily, but
Right.
that, and I mean, we can be talking to them yet before, I mean, we could approve this next month and still not, we're gonna do our clearing and stuff right to start with.
But if you don't have Grand Traverse Construction do this design work, are they gonna build the facility for you?
If we don't,
Yes.
Well, that's my.
If you said, okay, Joe's design.
No,
is
I'm
gonna do
just-
this
I'm
for
just-
200 grand, I'm just asking.
right,
Is it AE design?
They have one small thing they had to do.
well, I just, probably, Alan, they will, but I just wanna make sure that it was a legitimate number, was, you know,
And then again, like I said, just because we approve it tonight does not necessarily mean we're signing the contract tonight. So if it's something that we come back, if you wanted to, so that we can sit down and keep moving forward and have an idea in the back of our head, you know, whatever, however you want to approach it, but we definitely need to sit down with them after we have this discussion to determine where do we stand with them and get more clarity from them.
You like Grand Traverse Construction and they're well qualified. In our-
Absolutely.
In our community, they're well thought of.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
Right?
they are.
I think it'd be fairly safe to pass this, and then we're still gonna do our due diligence.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I think we can look into, like you suggested, look at some numbers and maybe see if we can bring that number down based upon what you find. But at the end of the day, we approve.
We approve Grand Traverse.
Yeah.
They're for this
And-
project.
And they were the best one of the
Oh, yes,
ones
but, yeah.
by far.
We were very, we were very happy with every answer they gave
Yeah.
as far as how they would approach it.
And they
So
got the contract.
And to Alan's point, they are.
So Alan's gonna make that
So,
motion.
motion to approve.
Alan's
Because
gonna
I think
make
it's
the
gonna
motion,
cost
yeah.
more. And so I'm happy with only $410,000.
I do have a question. So we're gonna approve this. And then we're gonna sit down and talk. And that's where we're gonna talk about.
we'll negotiate where we
Well,
are.
is that where we're gonna make sure when we build this building that it's, I think, Lee, it's green as we can make it efficiently, no cost.
We're gonna see what options and what costs.
So we have a giant roof that we might be able to rent out to consumers or cherry land to produce. They're looking for land. They're looking for land. If it offsets the cost of us running the building.
Well, we also are gonna wanna talk to them, like I said, we're gonna wanna talk to them as to whether or not, you know, is it worth doing something geothermal? Is it worth doing something with the log burning? Since we have, yeah, so we have so many trees that we take down annually that we're turning into chips instead of using them to heat the building.
By the way, you were gonna get us some numbers for here too.
Yes, I'm still.
I'm just curious, what are we?
About 100,000
per year. Facility, the existing
Sell it.
facility.
So,
So let's,
Oh, sell it.
yeah, we don't wanna,
We own the land though.
we own the whole thing, yeah.
and I do know there is interest in that property.
Yeah, it's pretty
The
good.
construction company picked that up in a heartbeat.
People have talked, the building itself is,
On the land.
Is- it's the land, not the building.
Yeah, and it can never be residential, but
That,
it can
that
be
building, if
commercial
you look at it,
It's on a highway.
there's no worth there.
Simple one.
All right, we have a motion and support by Joe. Motion by Alan, support by Joe. Roll call, please.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes,
Kevin,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes. Okay, we'll move forward. All right, item K, ARPA funds. Peter brought that up.
I'm gonna leave this kind of, I think, Joe, were you the one who called me? Was it Joe or? So let's have Joe start here and,
This the Wayne conversation, right?
well, no, this is for the one from the county that they are giving out they have some applications for ARPA funds.
Yeah, I thought it was Hyder.
Yeah, I said
Oh, that was you,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
sorry.
There's not really much to start here. I mean, I know that the deadline is 60 days from September 1st to submit an application for the projects. And there's like $18.2 million in ARPA funds that the county has. Part of one of the categories that was identified through that subgroup that met for all these months is infrastructure, and I think that we should take full advantage of, this opportunity and identify some of the projects that this board feels are high priority projects that we wouldn't be able to otherwise fund with our general funds or village monies, and see if we can put together a list and submit an application. I know there was some talk about the South Airport, that those culverts, and that is probably from my understanding is that there are some additional money aside from ARPA funds that might be eligible for. That's what
It's a FEMA grant.
FEMA, yeah. But that was my thought, that this will be nice for this, it's a good idea for this board to look at some of the projects that we have been talking about, that we'd like to see, and so we may not get all the money that we want, but
Would it be any different than the list we sent to Lansing?
probably.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things that we did not feel like this was the type of thing that Lansing would be interested in doing, but there are a couple of things that we came up with. Our radio system here is ancient, to say the very least. And we can't get parts for any of our radios anymore. So we started pricing it out, and to replace our radio system for all of our vehicles, base stations and the handhelds, we're at about $430,000. Now, what this does, which may be something that they would be inclined for, is this allows then the sheriff to be able to communicate with us directly instead of having to carry a separate radio. And it allows dispatch to connect without having to have a second radio. And we can then, these are also the radios that are trunked throughout the state, so that everybody's on these systems and you can contact anybody else who's coming in for an emergency type situation. But no matter what, we need to upgrade our radios and our plow drivers. We've talked about, okay, what are other options? And we thought, well, is it cheaper for us to give a phone stipend to each of our drivers to allow them to have the phone? But the problem comes during plowing.
Yeah.
Because all these plow drivers, when they're trying to get a platoon set up to plow 31, that's 5 lanes wide, they need to get 4 vehicles lined up in order so that they can go down and plow that entire stretch to 31. And then they also have, okay, I'm stuck here. You can't come in this way, but you can come in this way to plow out in front of me so that I can get out.
Yeah, phone technology is not quite there to replace the radios, at least not in our region.
No,
Yeah, signal,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
Well, if there's monies out there, I guess I'm all for whatever we can apply for. The worst I can say is no.
Why would we think the road commission's need wouldn't be just as important as the commission on aging?
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
the curling club, the bike path. Why wouldn't we think our stuff had merit?
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think that's an excellent one for the radios, to put them on the 800 megahertz.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been.
Great, Joe, you know something.
He's got us, doesn't he?
Battle in the legislature. Would it be best for us to have one thing we really, rather than shotgun these things? Are you thinking one specific?
I think we present them in priorities.
Yeah.
We say the radio, so you say, let's say we put it all together and radios come up on the top. I mean, I think you do that, but you get everything in there. Because then they're gonna, then you walk away, you say, well, you didn't approve this, this, and this, and this, but they don't feel so bad because they at least got us our radios, our number one priority. I say we, like I say, you can get as much in there as you possibly can.
The other thing is that I don't know where, these categories, they're kind of like very vague categories. I don't know what all is included in infrastructure, or whether radio equipment falls in some other bucket there. So I would say just take advantage as much as we can with all the.
The other thing is, and the other item mentioned on here is culverts, and it really kind of, this is the kind of thing where we've talked about this. We have a lot of culverts that are in a state of disrepair every single year. How many culverts fail on us? I mean, we're spending like 200,000 on this road or that road to fix a catastrophic failure, so whether it be Silver Lake Road or Silver Lake Road. Something about that.
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing, Jason, and I got the phone.
It's one side or the other, for crying out loud. But,
I mean, there's already $500 million worth of requests for $18.2 million. So
That's
because
excellent.
everyone wants to, so we should too. We should prioritize our projects and give us their list and.
Does the staff have time for this? Can you do this?
Yeah, I can spend time. on
So,
this for now.
so maybe we say, some supportive grants, like $100,000 for culvert repairs or something. It's not gonna cover everything, and frankly, it could be eaten up in a single job. But, it gets us some of those critical areas if we have a situation again.
Well, could I ask everybody that by Monday, if they have any specific things that they would like us to include, to send me something so I can start putting this all together? Okay, put it down.
Well, we're thinking over here that public safety.
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
But to Alan's point too, it's, we're gonna impact everybody in this county and people coming into this county that don't live there. I mean, it's why aren't we as worthy as anybody else?
So Potter and
Yeah,
Garfield
yeah.
roundabout,
There you go.
Absolutely.
have them make up some of the difference there.
Are there any projects on that list that you sent us to for Wayne that can be used here too? I don't know.
Those are all pretty major dollars.
Okay, all
That's
of
the
them?
thing is,
Okay.
I mean, the radios at 450, I think that's, that's, if we, we.
So we got that score. That's a good
That's-
score, yeah.
Because I think everything else was over $1 million, wasn't it, that we talked
Yeah.
about? Some of them were 7 million.
Well, I think consensus of the board is,
Okay.
have at it with.
And if you have anything, please let me know by Monday so I can start putting this together, and then I'll get it back out. And we can start talking and figure out.
All right.
Thank you.
Brings us to item L, OHM update, east-west corridor.
Wayne, I'll let you handle this. So just kind of an update of where we stand, what's happened since we've got the last approval.
So after the last meeting, we presented the report. They have secured a letter from the feds acknowledging the Patel process has been followed, and they don't come out and say they support. They wait for the NEPA phase to do that, but they acknowledge that the process is.
We haven't failed on a technicality. That's what they're saying.
Yep.
Okay.
And the OHM team has been working, and we're going to have a meeting here this next week, I believe, to kind of go over, and they're putting together a presentation to the county board. And that is going to be September 7th on that. And so that's pretty much what they've been doing. They have been behind the scenes talking to the state and the feds for the upcoming NEPA, so that they can kind of put together a next proposal for the next phase. They want to make sure that because what's happening is there's been such a retirement wave out of the state, out of the feds. Everyone that's in these positions now that are reviewing these focus panels and reviewing the NEPAs are all new people. And so the team.
Hopefully they used to work for OHM or something.
On that. And so they're reaching out, proactively reaching out and talking to them to make sure that they are going to put together what they want to be seeing specifically on this. On that. And so they've been working on that, kind of on their own, in anticipation of working to put together a proposal for it.
I want to say there's a lot of misinformation out there still about this project. So I got this email forwarded to me, from one of the county residents and about the Hardman-Hammond study. And apparently it's going around that the construction of this proposed bridge would run through the middle of the Boardman Valley Nature Preserve.
Which they're wrong.
which they are wrong.
Yeah.
And but, you know, I don't know how, I don't know what's the best way to kind of like get the information out there that this was a collaborative effort. This was, I think that it said like 38 plus local groups, including environmental groups, all this. But you probably all saw the Record Eagle article that came out that, you know, people already, without even, the day after, without even seeing the repelled study, people have already taken the stance they're gonna oppose it. Yeah, you know.
Well, you may be, it may help you to know that when we did the purpose and need part of it, and we went through the whole, the parts where we decided, you know, what would work, what is the best option to make this happen, and the crossing was well over 60%. And this is in the midst of some of the darkest, you know, campaigning against it. I think people understand it, and I think there's always going to be a segment of people who are just, they either don't understand it, or they don't want to understand it. They don't want to read up on it. They don't really want to study into what it's about, or how it's actually going to help the very causes that they supposedly, you know, support.
Is that study on our website?
Because Traverse City's not gonna be like it was in 1973.
Right, yeah.
But they didn't move here till 2016.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's the same folks that are gonna support running the target trail through the wetlands over here by 3 Mile.
Right,
Yeah.
but not.
Just had to get that in there again.
But it's the same,
Right.
Or building, who is it, the Conservancy, remember, building that in the middle of what was a golf course?
Yeah.
Too wet to be a golf course, but it's okay to build their building in the middle of it, so it's like, okay.
I got a chuckle because I think there was one comment that said, well, if you keep building more roads, more people are gonna come. They're already here.
They're already here.
I don't know how many roads we built in the last 10 years, but
None,
the population
none,
increase,
none,
you know.
We've not built a road.
Yeah.
I've been here
That's
12 years.
what-
We have not.
We did build out by Blades.
Stadium Drive. Stadium Drive, that's
Go
it.
on.
One almost private road, almost.
Yeah, so it's.
That's
yeah,
it.
no,
That's it.
I agree.
So one of, and yeah, hey, I don't know if you heard the interview that Jason and I were on with Ron Jolly, and we try to get this information, you know, and we send out through our Facebook, and we had advertisements for these public meetings, and people just pretty much want it built. I mean, that's the overwhelming, so the overwhelming calls that come in are build this. Why is it gonna take another 6-7 years? Why can't it start tomorrow?
No more studies, build it.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, actually, it was all supportive, just, you know, pretty.
And as we continue forward, when you actually see that the footprint's gonna be less than an acre or an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But it's expensive for that reason, though.
Oh, it is.
Let's move on, I think. M, professional services, somebody's chomping at the bit to discuss this, I think.
That's Wayne.
No?
Well, I want to make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I understand what he wants to do, and I make a.
Okay,
You want
Alex.
to explain, discuss anymore, Wayne, than that?
Alan, Joe.
I'm good.
I can close these out.
Yeah. We do have these 4 projects. Unfortunately, we lost Rob and then we lost Joe. So we are under the gun per se. We're on the fire list.
Okay.
So we really need to get these projects closed out. And then we've got one federal aid project going on. So that there's a lot of these requirements in there. That's why we put in, and we're on the list for selling our federal aid to the state for next year's projects. So this is the best way in which to keep these projects rolling forward. And in the meantime, then we will get other staff trained up in office stack, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with this position.
All right. Any more discussion on this? We have a motion of support. Spending money, Kylie?
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Haslam,
Yes.
Beeman.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes. All right, it passes, and they will help us finish up some of those projects we need to finish up.
Thank you.
That brings us to our informational items, managers' comments to start with. Anything?
Two things, nothing major, but next week, I think you guys all got the little flyer about the tailgate party deal that we're doing the end of the season. We had a great season for our crew. I don't remember how many, maybe Heather remembers how many people were raised up a layer or a level in their positions. They passed sufficient training. But this was a very productive year for us so far, and it's shaping up to be probably one of our best we've had. So we've got a lot of ditching done and a lot of brush clearance done, and we're really making progress. We're actually beginning to talk about getting our guys schooled now on doing guardrail repair instead of relying on guardrail contractors that take months to get here. So we've been very good with our crews. The crews have been very supportive, and they've worked a lot of extra hours to get a lot of work done this year. So I'm very happy with them for that. Second thing is, today we met with TTCI, the transportation group for the county, as well as for Leelanau County. And we talked about the upcoming probability of a metropolitan planning unit. And so we are moving forward with as fast as we can, but we're still waiting, as every few months they keep telling us, well, it'll be a few months before the final census data is released. But immediately following that, then we probably will be moving forward and getting the new urbanized area. Everything within the urbanized area has to be part of the metropolitan unit. But then in addition to that, there's what is considered the study area. So everything outside the urbanized area has to be included, can be included kind of at the discretion. So the feeling right now is the study area is probably going to be all of Grand Traverse County, Elmwood Township, and Bingham Township in Leelanau County because of the expansion that's happening. So it's a very, very involved process, but over the course of the next couple of years, we're going to have to start having some meetings here with the groups, and we're going to have to designate who is the commissioner rep to this when we start moving forward and start attending some of these meetings to start planning how are we going to deal with this as an organization. So each of the participating townships will have a member, and the city of Traverse City, us, MDOT, and Leelanau County Road Commission will have a member. So we'll be discussing a lot of things, and it should be very, very advantageous to us in the long run.
Anything else? All right, brings us to commissioners' comments. So we'll go around the room and start it.
So I attended the Emergency Operations Committee meeting, their August meeting. And on October 17th, they're having a meeting on road projects. And I would really like Brad and Wayne to be there. It's at 1 o'clock on October 17th. So if you guys can put that on your calendars, and they meet in the basement of the wherever. The other thing I wanted to just bring up, I know that we on a weekly basis we have announced all our road projects that are going on around the county on our Facebook page, and there is a media release thing on the website as well. But is there a way that we can send that same information to our township supervisors so that they know what's going on in their townships, and they can then, number one, be aware of those projects, and number two, they can then circulate that information amongst them? Because I've received a couple of complaints from a couple of township supervisors.
Each of the township supervisors has been told every year, at least once a year by me, if you want construction updates, call Kylie. She'll put you on the same distribution list as everybody else.
Okay.
And I will send it around again when we start our round.
One
Jim and I are.
supervisor uses smoke signals or something, but I.
Yeah.
So, but Kylie can set up for anybody to be on that. I don't know how many people are on it. You can, yeah, you can go onto our website, subscribe to it.
Text message and email.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say something about the format of that though. You know, when you get the email, it's like, oh, click here to find out what, let's just put it in the email. I mean, because there isn't that much stuff. I mean, you know, that we couldn't do that probably. Just my 2 cents.
And then I got confronted by a lady yesterday. Is there work on some Broomhead Road Bridge?
Yes.
Okay. She was indicating that there are no signs there alerting drivers that the bridge is out and that people are going there and turning around. Do you know who I'm talking about? Or
I don't know the particular person, but
okay.
I have yet to have a construction project that we don't get that complaint.
Okay.
There are signs out there.
There are, I was
Especially
saying,
when right before the bridge is out.
when I drove out, I saw 4 different signs on my way there.
God bless her. She came to me. She said, you know,
It's like,
yeah,
stop. No, really, stop.
there's no signs there. I'm like, really?
How far along is that?
We're putting in piles. They started driving the test piles. Test piles looking good. We're doing piles. So we'll be through the end of September.
That'll be done.
That's all for me. Thank
Joe? First off, we got some compliments on the roundabout River Road and put the stub in for the park. That'll eventually get figured out. When we redo Whitener, this is something to put in the back of our head. The county parks people were asking us, will there be a way to get under the bridge instead of having people go side to side of the road?
Yes,
So
so
it's the same for South Airport, if we put a bridge in there on the side we talked about.
that is, yes, so that kayakers, canoers will be able to go under it.
Walk and,
Yes.
okay,
I don't know about walking. South Airport, yes.
okay.
Beitner, I don't know if they'll be able to work that out.
Have to raise it up a lot to do
Yeah,
that,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the depth is there. so.
Some approach can happen to allow that, but what happens is in order to facilitate a walk path there, you're gonna have another 10+ feet that lengthens your structure so much,
Okay.
and
Right.
just the state's okay with that, but they take that extra part and say, well, that's on your dime.
That's on your dollar, okay.
So we have to clear span the high water mark. That's all included. To go further beyond that, then in order to
That's
like
not
put a
right.
walk path in, then that gets a little pricey.
All right, that's it. Carl?
I'm good.
Bill?
The only thing I have is Mitch Werner, who was the Bingham Township supervisor, talked to me in church a couple times over the last couple months about when the earlier transportation growth were done and when Leelanau County completed 641 up to 72. And we were supposed to find a way to get to Silver Pines Road, and we have this Zimmerman Road extension in there. And she said, well, I understand there's a private party that was going to build a subdivision there, but didn't. And she said they were promised by us that we would try to complete a link in there for the transportation to Leelanau County.
Through Gray and Bugai Road.
Through Gray and
Yeah.
Bugai. And I'm asking if we could see who we need to encroach on or purchase, what this project might cost to be part of the Leelanau County connector and showing people that maybe we would do what we promised or somebody thought we did and work towards, we're doing like the roundabout. You said, well, that feels positive.
Yeah, there's that stub at the end of Zimmerman. And then you're talking about coming across Harris.
Coming from the Harris Road thing.
Harris.
It's about
And then you have to go across the golf course, I think,
Bay
there,
Meadows.
and you have to come across Bay Meadows and match it up with Gray. And that is a beautiful road there, Gray and on out 641. I mean, that's a gorgeous stretch. They did a nice job there too. But
And I will tell you, no promise was made. I will tell you that that was back when it was not a road study. It was basically all the money was taken away and spent on everybody's wish of what they wanted for affordable housing and what they wanted for nature preserves and everything else. But no promises were ever made. They said it would be something that could be discussed with Leelanau County, and Leelanau County never followed through at the time. And then it kind of became like a back burner issue, and it was never built due to the extreme expense. And this is going back through what, I can't remember what her name was from the news station, that she found all that documentation as part of that study when she was sorting through it. But
this is the first one to bring it up.
no, and it is something we have, and I think, you know, when you start, it's not something at this point that you want, we are quite there, but when you start looking at a metropolitan planning organization and you're talking about us and Leelanau County being part of that same organization, then we can start applying for grants that span multiple counties. And that's probably the time you talk about it. So you're probably talking a couple of years out, because then at that point you have federal funds that can come in to help.
just, I know we have a Zimmerman Road dead ends in there, and it was hopefully gonna be a better connection.
Yeah.
And we don't have a good connection over there. We have that isn't it here, Harris goes north and south, or Lone Pine or whatever comes into North Long Lake Road at the intersection is a terrible connection. And there's a lot of people, there's big population out there.
But it's gonna get even bigger with that senior center or senior housing. That's gonna be big, like at the corner.
That's all I had, thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Well, a couple things. I got a guy tearing up my driveway today, and he used to work for one of our other local road commissions, and he definitely indicated he would have rather worked here. Just to throw that out there, he hears nothing but good things. The other thing, just kind of again, this is one of my, crazy thoughts. So we're talking about straight, we're talking about Long Lake and all that's going on out there. How could is there a way that instead of moving a road, think about this, just cogitate on this a little bit. What if we had a great big roundabout? I mean, like a long oblong type of roundabout where we have a merged kind of situation like that, and then it just takes it along. So we basically if we widened the right of way, so to speak, instead of moving a whole road, if we could widen it enough to actually kind of bring it out like in a figure eight of some, it's not a figure eight, obviously, we don't need that, buses crashing and all that stuff. But I mean. It's an oval, yeah, with an hourglass shape.
Talking about that the other day, we both saw the same thing.
Yeah.
It was an offset road, and they basically built, it's a mini racetrack, I don't know. But, and it served the same purpose.
So I'm not crazy. I mean, I'm just looking at
Might
this.
be crazy.
I might be, well, I might be crazy,
But it has nothing
but
to do with
it has like an hourglass figure or something. So it's going to control some of your speed in that way.
Right.
But it would at least accomplish what we're trying to do and keep the speeds there slow enough. There would be a chance for people to cross if they needed to the ice cream store or whatever the heck, the other store that's there. But just kind of thinking, take an overlook, an overview, and say, what would it cost to do that versus moving a road?
I think our just off the top of my head, I think the 66-foot width would be too constrictive.
Okay.
There, we'd have to kind of go beyond the moomers, but then you get down, then there's a big hole.
Okay.
Down there.
Well,
But it's that type of a similarity that a boulevard section, if you will, that would accomplish something like.
Yeah, that's essentially what it would become, is a kind of a boulevard or something, if you could get enough space at either end. Anyway, so, no other comments. That brings us to our public comment. Casper's wanting to talk here and.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Nobody- I
I
took your job. I take it seriously.
All right.
Who seconded?
did.
Okay.